board meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Nelson.
Here.
Stata.
Here.
Goblin.
Here.
Bergstrom.
Here.
Bonsonfield.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
And Beshan. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Next is community input. Clace, anything you want to share?
No, but thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate that. Consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October special meeting and the November regular meeting?
Moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to review and pay bills and review financial reports all at one time?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, Jennifer?
I don't have anything in particular to point out. I'm happy to answer any questions you have for the bills this year. There's some accounts were a little over, some accounts were a little under. Overall, we're under just because of some turnover in staff positions. We do have, I expect that we will be under budget with a cushion of space because of that reason.
Are there any questions for Jennifer on the bills? Okay.
The other thing I should mention is we I believe today with the bills that you'll be approving used up the currently available balance of impact fees collected for library purposes. Those will be continued to be collected with new building permits for residential development, and then we can use any until the borrowing takes place in 2023 still for the new library, but we have used up the balance that was available.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. All in favor of approving financial reports and paying bills, say aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Committee reports. Building committee.
So the building committee has not met, but you should have in your packets a updated rendering to show the brick. It's not perfect, but gives you an idea of the concept with the brick instead of the wood finish on the outside of the building. So that's exciting to see in the packet. And then we are working on office layouts for our staff, and then layout of the shelving in the collection to make sure we have the right amounts of shelving in the right places for the right collections. So we're trying to get through that work by early January, and then we'll be moving on to selecting some of the fun furniture once we kind of know what the the necessity budget or costs will likely be. Then we can have a little bit more information to move forward with the other parts of it. That's kind of where we're at. That's all I have for building committee.
We had a groundbreaking.
Oh yeah.
Which was exciting and fun and snowy, so that was exciting. And muddy. So hopefully everybody got the mud out their boots. But yeah, we actually had a really good turnout, and it was really exciting too. So thanks for the people that came, and so that was super, super exciting news. So.
Question, are there any real surprises with how the construction's coming along?
No surprises so far. We're doing well with the contingency. They haven't needed to use, there's not really any concerns with the soils, so any soil changes is minimal, so that's good because that's one of the unknown things that when they're doing it, so they're very happy with how that's come around so far. They did have to close a part of North Alpine Parkway Monday and Tuesday. Thankfully, we were able to notify the church and the Little Angels and the food pantry, which all very much appreciated that. They were able to get the work done as scheduled, so I think the community appreciated that as well. The one thing that was a challenge was the switchgear for the project, the lead time on the switchgear, which is required for the electrical service, which you need to install the elevator. Lead time on that is 52 to 56 weeks. And so on day one, we were behind schedule with that. And so we'll be getting a change order next month to pay a small additional fee, and they can suddenly ship it 4 months sooner for you.
Capitalism at its best.
So we should be having a schedule now that they have that, and a lot of the subcontractors signed on. We'll be able to have a better schedule about when we're able to move in, but it looks like in 2023. So that would be really exciting to have that on the calendar. So.
Thank you.
That's good for the building committee. Library director's report.
So I just have a note in my report of some reminders from some holiday dates that were closed, with the holidays falling on the weekend. The dates get a little bit hard to remember for closures. We had the village employee appreciation luncheon for the first time since 2019, and so it was a great chance for the village departments to get together. We had 3 employees. Wendy Borden was honored for 20 years of service at the library. Kelly Allen had 15, and Sue Tierman had 10 years. So we had a great 55 years of service being honored, which is wonderful. So you see their picture. We did some, also Laura was able to do some groundbreaking photos for all our staff, since we had a lot of things come up and not all of our staff, or hardly any of our staff actually, were able to come because of all those surprises. So each employee got a chance to do a groundbreaking photo, which everybody appreciated. We also, just want to give you a heads up, we have some employees with FMLA leave coming up, and so in January we will be having a minimal program schedule, just because we will be spread pretty thin. We're still filling our CLA, our library system position, so it means we could be having 1 new employee and having potentially 2 employees that are full-time out at the same time, which is a lot for an organization of our size. We also got a new and improved wireless printing, so there's a great website, or you can get an app for your phone, so people that don't have printers can email, they can use the app, or they can use the website, and I could sit here and send something with a couple taps to print at the library, go in the library, say I want to pick up my prints, and then I can get those. And so it's super convenient for people that are traveling or don't have a printer at home. I don't have one at home, I use it for my own printing, so that's pretty exciting. It's a lot more user-friendly. Have some groundbreaking thank yous, special thanks to OCA Media, who filmed our groundbreaking despite the mud, especially Josiah, who was out in the rain and mud with us. We appreciate that. They did a great job with the ceremony, so if you haven't had a chance to attend, I would encourage you to watch it. It was very, very nice coverage from them. The village board also approved adding 2 new employee paid holidays for village staff, so that's Juneteenth and Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so we will be closed in accordance with that to recognize those days. I think that is, Laura has her monthly report. We have some staff participating in a library journal course on LGBTQIA-centered spaces, programs, and services. We also got our new AED, which the fire department helped us set up, because there's a certain order you have to put the batteries in, and they made that real easy for us. You also, in your packet, have just an instruction of the Wi-Fi printing, just so you kind of know how it works, just in case you have the opportunity to talk about it to anybody, and then a calendar of our December events. Are there any questions?
Khalid's not here. Are there any village board announcements, Jennifer, that you think are worth sharing?
I can't think of anything else at this time.
Okay. School district announcements?
Something connected to the library. We are starting a weekly podcast for the school district, and our second week will be on things that you can do with your young people other than screen time over winter break. We are interviewing one of our librarians, Mark Lee, and I'm going to have the pleasure of sitting down with Kelly Allen, so she can talk about what services the public library offers during that time period, and other ways to encourage families to use books as a really important way to fill more of the downtime that you'll have. So we're excited about the podcast project in general, but I thought it was particularly fun that one of our first couple involves Kelly. So
Pretty awesome. Thank you. Okay. Discussion and possible action items. 2023 employee wage schedule and set 2023 wages for employees.
So we've been talking about staff compensation since basically before I started. Something that our board has had as a goal for a long time was to make sure employees were appropriately compensated and that we were able to retain and recruit quality employees for our community and staff. So the village, as you know, undertook a compensation study earlier this year. At their November meeting, the village board approved the wages that came forward as a result of that study, and those are what are before you tonight. Thankfully, the village is also adjusting their budget appropriation to the library to fund the costs needed to cover those wage increases. And so I have two recommended motions. One is to adopt the wage schedule for library employees and the 2023 wages for current employees. So it's both the schedule, the framework, and then also to set the wage for the people that are already working for us. And then the second motion is that any new employee that joins our team will be hired at step one of whatever position they are hired for. We have one recruitment currently in place, and so just want to make sure we are able to hire them and place them appropriately at this point. That could change in the future. I know the village board has a compensation policy on their agenda for next week Monday's meeting, so depending on the outcome of that could change, and things they do next year that could change moving forward, but for now that's the fairest way to place people that are new relative to our existing employees. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have about this. Otherwise, you probably have heard about it quite a bit.
Would you say it's well within our budgetary abilities?
Yes, because the village basically increased our budget exactly by the dollars needed to fully fund the increased wages. So we have the additional funds needed to offset it. If we were not to approve it, then we would have additional funds and we would have to have a conversation with the village about that, and they might wish to change that contribution.
Well, we better hurry up and go ahead and approve that.
So I would fully encourage you to approve it enthusiastically. If you approve it, we'll have lots of very happy employees.
I was like, can you just say yes, please? Are there any other questions or comments?
Because we have two possible motions, we're only talking about the first one
We'll
right
talk
now,
about the
right?
first one, yes. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the 2023 employee wage schedule for library employees and 2023 wages for current employees. Is there,
So moved.
is there a second?
I'll say, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, Jen.
Okay. Go ahead, John. Sounds like John seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then the second motion, hire any new employee at step one for the position they are hired for. Is there a motion? for
I'll
that?
make that motion.
Laura, you wanna second that?
Sure, I'll second that.
I'll second that one. Any questions or discussions?
So,
Yeah.
well, just one question for you, Jennifer. If someone comes in with many years of experience at a different library, you have no option other than step one?
So right now, our existing employees, the way they place them, just because they're trying to get everybody on the schedule, is any existing village employee, if they had less than 5 years of experience, got placed at step one. So for example, I got placed at step one because they're trying to get everybody on the schedule. And so any employees with 5 years or more experience at our library got placed at a step three. And so I feel like it would be unfair to place a new employee, hire them at step one when we have existing employees. Like I can think of some other employees that have more library service that maybe would merit placing in a different step because they've been with us for less than that 5 year period. You know, so basically for equity with our current employees, I think at this point that's the best option moving forward. There might be down the road some ability to place people and give respect that longevity, but until we get our current employees to that same level, it's not probably very prudent to do that at this juncture.
Thank you.
We don't want to brew discontent.
Yeah, we don't want people to quit so that we have to rehire them to get hired.
And that would be bad, all around.
Yeah, it's just a little complicated. We're basically just trying to get everybody on, so it's
Sure.
not perfect, but it's making progress towards, you know, where it should be, so.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you for that. I'm glad the village is willing to help us move in the right direction, so we appreciate that as well. is adopt final 2023 library budget.
So this is basically amendment to our budget that reflects the updated line items for wages and the associated fringes. So retirement is based on wages that are required to fund the additional wages for the compensation study. So basically it takes the budget that we previously had approved and then adds additional funds to it to fund wages and fringes associated with the wages that we just adopted, so that we have a balanced budget.
So can I have a motion to approve the final 2023 library budget as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, good job, Laura.
I should note that the village board already did approve giving us this extra funding, so we're not asking for something that they're not in support of or haven't already looked at.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Construction testing services.
So we have a proposal from CGC for construction testing. And so that's related to the soils and the foundations, and basically determines if we need, different soils and to make sure everything, Jenny can explain it better, but it's really important. And it can help, doing it sometimes a little bit more can often help us save money in the long run by making sure what choices they're making and what soils are bringing in and out and things they're doing is done as closely as possible to the way that it should be done. I'm gonna let Jenny explain that better if she'd like to.
CGC does this for almost every construction site. So they test the soil compaction, they test what kind of soils are there, and they make sure that what the companies are bringing in is the right mix of soil that's been designed. So a lot of times it's really good to have the information if the concrete tests come back later, you've been testing, you see it sooner, there's less tear out in the future. So it's something that every construction project has. And it's good for us to hold the contract so that the contractor's not testing themselves, right? It's a third party, it's something they report directly to us, so, yeah. And usually it's done kind of a T&M type of contract, which is what it looks like the proposal's for. They just kind of, as they're needed, they come in and they test the things and then, kind of go from there.
I should point out too, my recommendation is that you approve an amount that's slightly higher than the contract, just if additional testing is needed, that way they have that ability to do it, extra testing. I will point out that last time they did a proposal for us, they did come in under budget. And I anticipate that will happen. Jeff Ryan coordinated with them to kind of anticipate the number of trips, the amount of testing that would be required. But I would just prefer to have that pre-approved so we don't have any delays related to getting approval for more testing.
And just to specify, T&M stands for time and materials.
Yep. So, yeah, their hourly rate plus whatever materials they need to get there.
That you use contractor talk.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Sometimes I forget about it.
It's okay.
So, that was a good clarification, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
The normal people talk, it means they'll just bill us what they actually incur. Which we all
Yes.
like.
There's that.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the CGC proposal and authorize additional testing as needed at the hourly rates up to $10,000?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Donor recognition wall services.
So we are kind of getting into some of the more fun parts of the library project. I know, we've been waiting, right? So one of the things that we'd like to get started on, just so that we're not rushed, is the donor recognition wall design. We want to make sure that's done really well and really honors the people that helped make our project possible. And so ideally we want to do that in a way that allows us to have that installed and ready to go on our grand opening day. We don't want it to be an afterthought. We don't want people to be wondering where it is. So I would like to get that started, and I'm recommending we work with Tyce, a Oregon company. They do amazing donor walls, and they provided a proposal back in April. We weren't really ready to move forward, but there is a proposal in your packet for the donor wall design, fabrication, and installation. And then we can start moving forward with conversations about what that might look like. We do have a wall set aside in the project for that, just off the lobby, quite a few names that we will be honoring on that location.
It is something budgeted already in the overall budget, so it's not something that we're adding to it. It was something we were accounting for to begin with.
So it's in our existing budget?
Yep.
Okay.
Are there any questions that we can answer?
Does this require a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I would needed a motion to approve the Tyce proposal for the donor recognition wall services for the new library.
I would like to move.
Awesome. Second?
I'll second that.
Any questions, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Sponsorship agreement.
So there's kind of two parts to this. So it might have even been before the pandemic or during the pandemic. The village kind of came up with a sponsorship policy and a sponsorship agreement for use for JC Park. And we also had them kind of draft a version for the library. Because of circumstances at that time being what they were, we did not pursue agreements at that time, but we kept the template so that we can use it with donors moving forward, just to set expectations. In the past, there's been places where there's been hurt feelings when people, when the function of the space changes down the road, or about what term the naming opportunity is for. And so the intent of that is just to make sure everybody is kind of on the same page about what those, the recognition will be and how it'll work moving forward. Ideally, we would have used those earlier, but because of a lot of the path of our project, a lot of the terms changed, so it's actually really good that we didn't pursue those when we were considering it. But now, moving forward, we'll be working on implementing those with our donors with naming opportunities. So I have two parts. One is just updating the general sponsorship agreement, kind of the template that we'll use to have those kind of similar terms for all donors. And then we do have one specific donor agreement that I sent out by email on Tuesday that I'd like you to consider, and it's basically the same exact wording. There are a couple special terms that donor requested. It is kind of a unique space, so I think those terms are appropriate. And I can elaborate more on that specific agreement and why those terms are appropriate once we just look at the general agreement. But basically, my recommendation would be that we approve using this agreement with donors for naming opportunities, so that it's clear what their recognition will be.
This is regarding the patent specifically?
So the first one is just that we'll use as kind of a template for any
right.
space. And then we'll talk more specifically after that motion about
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
second
I
agreement.
apologize.
You're correct, yeah.
Are there any questions about the initial sponsorship agreement?
So would you be going back to donors who have already donated to have them sign this?
I would be reaching out to them if somebody really didn't feel comfortable. I think if they've already contributed, we could have a conversation about that. I don't think anything here would be surprising. It's more to protect people, like in the case that the project were to happen, or just so they know, how the recognition will be received and the terms. The terms in here do match what we've told people, so it's not. I don't think anything in there will be surprising, but we do want to make sure we're respectful of the fact that some people donated and didn't have this in place at the time.
So you would retroactively kind of have everybody sign?
Yeah, we kind of want to have conversations with everybody who did have naming opportunity anyway to update them on the plans and the project. And then also we'll be talking about each individual space will have signage, and so we'll also reach out to them about the signage and what opportunity they'll have to have their name recognized. And so this can be kind of part of the conversation. The majority of the naming opportunities are already paid in full. So really the payment part isn't really critical, but another role of this would be to just have clear expectations about the timing of those payments. And so some of the functions are already kind of obsolete in those cases. But part of it is too, it also kind of protects you if there's just misunderstandings, or if there's certain circumstances that arise. But if a donor had a particular concern with anything, we can always bring that back to this board to talk about.
Can I have a motion to approve the updated sponsorship agreement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then next is, Jennifer, do you want to talk about the next part of it?
The next part is just a sponsorship agreement for a particular space. So this follows the template above with the amount and the family name filled in. This space is a little bit different because it is an exterior space. And so one of the donors' concern was to make sure that that space didn't get that space remained, the integrity of that space remains throughout the project and it's not cut or modified. And so we just included an attachment saying that it's going to be built with the layout that we plan to build anyway. So I have that image in their agreement, and then just that we'll consult with them on the wording and placement of the recognition sign within their donor area, and that I think is especially appropriate for this space since it's an outside space. It's a little bit different. And then lastly, they chose to increase beyond the naming opportunity that we had available because they felt strongly about the story walk, that we would really like to have a story walk installed next to the bike and walking path bypass loop. And so we got a price quote for signage that would allow us to have a permanent story walk outside for kids and adults. And the funding in this would allow for that, and so we just added clarity for that element because they were really excited about that element, and so am I. So that section C is added and is unique to this agreement for those reasons. So I felt those were appropriate provisions to include to make sure we were doing that. We will consult with all donors on the wording on their signage and recognize them how they wish to be recognized, but it is spelled out specifically in this one.
Just the one, the layout is exactly what we had been planning.
Yep, it's the bid document is what is included in it, so that was what we wanted.
It's a beautiful space.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agreement?
may I?
Please do.
Thank you.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Change order approval process. That sounds fun.
So this is more, we just want to be clear and transparent about how things work. So when you're doing a construction project, things always go perfectly, and you never have to change anything and make last minute decisions. So often there are needs to modify things either because of surprises or challenges or things got omitted accidentally, and so a change order could also be to subtract costs, but that typically it doesn't happen very often. And so basically the contractor will provide pricing information on whatever that change to the project is, and then Jeff Fine, our owner's representative, will review it, and there might be conversation about the pricing or clarification, and go back and forth until they kind of get to an official change order that will be presented. So what we're proposing is that we can kind of sign off on change orders upon Jenny and I looking at the review and letting Jeff know that those are okay with us, and kind of all being in agreement that it's kind of in the best interest of the library and also within the change order budget. And then each month we'll prepare that list of change orders for that month and present it to the library board. So you'll have the chance to approve it, and then also see where we are with the contingency budget to know where we stand, and then provide any feedback on the change orders at that time. There's some that are really time sensitive, so meeting once a month would just not allow us. Sometimes they need to be decided upon in a matter of hours or overnight, and so this allows us to move forward, but also give you the oversight to make sure that you're comfortable with the decisions being made and the process. We can also revisit it should the contingency start to be close to being used up. We can revisit this process at any time, but right now that's kind of the plan, and we're kind of coordinating with Tri-North to have the library board due date so we can get as many change orders in front of you as possible at the meeting so you're aware of what's going on. And then if something does come forward that's more discretionary or optional, like we wish we would like to do this, or they wish that we should do this, but maybe we don't have to do it, or it's not as critical, those things we can always hold until the library board meeting to get your direction on it, if appropriate. So I guess that's kind of the process. I just want you to be aware that there are sometimes things that need to move forward quickly unless you want me to schedule special meetings all the time. This is probably the best way to do it, but I'm open for any feedback on that process.
I would offer that it's very important, based upon construction schedules, to have a flexibility in place so that change orders are not delayed, because that can delay the entire project. And I think this wording is very appropriate in that regard.
Jeff is very diligent at reviewing things, so that's also good to understand. He definitely looks through everything very closely. So. Okay, so then can I have a motion to follow the change order process that Jennifer laid out in her memo?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Second. Awesome. I feel like I'm a role here. That's awesome. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Do you want to talk about future change orders? Is that on here?
So we thought we would have some change orders for our meeting tonight, but it's the first time that we're getting things started, so those actually probably won't be ready until right before our next meeting. So we will have those for you in January. I did put in here what I expect them to be. So the expediting of that switchgear to get our elevator installed on time. There's some surveying that's required by Dane County that will be an additional cost. And then some of the parking, the soils of parking, there's a minimal amount of work. I guess I don't know what minimal is, but an amount of work that makes Jeff happy that needs to be done. And then the last thing, when we somehow, between when the village attorney signed off on the language for the AIA agreement, the contract, and how the word processing and how it gets loaded into their proprietary software. There were some glitches with strike-throughs showing up in the wrong places and things. And so part of the change order, Jeff went item by item in the contract to find any places where the language didn't match. So we got that straightened out, ran it by Tri-North, and so one of the pieces will just be cleaning up those sections where the language lost its meaning or got messed up by the word processing transition to the other software. So those will be coming forward. There's no action tonight, but just a heads up that that's what's examples of change orders you'll see.
Okay. Our next meeting is Wednesday, January 11th. Are there any future agenda items that anybody would like to add? Okay. Then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.